Whether your beer is in a bottle, can, or glass, kick back and relax. It's Better on Draft.
Welcome, everybody. Episode 270 Better on Draft podcast. My name is Ken. Thank you so much for joining us. I appreciate you spending your Friday nights with us. If you're not joining us Friday nights, feel free to join us Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. That's betterondraft.tv or facebook.com/betterondraft. You can Better on Draft, not draft. You can join us in the chat, especially if we have a guest that you are interested in talking to. You can ask questions directly to our guest, which our guest from Boulevard Brewing is going to be joining us in just a second. Let's go around and see what everybody is drinking, starting with Dan. Dan, what do you got over there?
Yo, I'm pulling a Nick since part-time's not here yet. I have got a bottle of Magic Drip. And to go on top of that, if that's not enough, I got a Dark Truth here. Definitely be drinking a few of these later and fighting on the internet. They're pretty damn good.
All right. And Danny, welcome back. We appreciate you joining us. What are you drinking over there?
I have the Space Camper Cosmic IPA. And I'm very excited about it.
Awesome. Cool. Wendy, sorry. Cut you off. My apologies. Wendy, what are you drinking?
I've got the Bourbon Barrel Quad from Boulevard, one of my favorite styles of beer, and actually one of my favorite quads. So
I saw that, and I literally said, oh, no, Wendy is going to be having some fun tonight drinking that. For myself... go on.
Sorry. I guess we're just going to do that all night. I am... also pulling a Nick, but I went with the Flying Start non-alcoholic IPA as my second beer today because of the quad.
Well, I don't know if you guys saw it, but I actually posted on our TikTok. We have a TikTok, and I made a declaration, and I don't know how I'm going to feel about this declaration, but I am actually going to be staying sober, not just October, but until the Detroit Lions win a game. I don't know how long it's going to be.
That might backfire on you pretty quickly.
I was going to say.
I joined this conversation a little bit.
Oh, hey, Nick. Thanks for stopping by. How are you?
Well, Nick's here. Let's go over what I'm drinking real quick. I got a Two Roots IPA, and I got a Cerveza Atletica from Athletic Brewing, a non-alcoholic light copper ale. So we're sticking with I went off the non-alcoholic whiskey. I might go back to it next week or maybe in a little bit, but I wanted to go through. Nick, what are you drinking?
I am drinking a Boulevard Flying Start IPA, and I also am drinking a Boulevard Tank 7. That's
right.
Well, compliments of our guest. We're going to be drinking a lot of Boulevard throughout the show, so let's bring him in. Why don't you introduce yourself and tell us what you do with Boulevard?
Yeah, hi. First of all, thanks for having me, and thanks for drinking those beers. My name is Adam Hall. I'm the brand manager for Boulevard for all things beer. And it sounds weird to say that now, but once we got into the seltzer game and the RTD game, we've had to change the way that we talk about our beverages a little bit. But if it has to do with beer at all, it's my job to kind of interact with people, work with the brand, talk about the beers, go out and do this kind of stuff. So yeah, I could not be happier to be here.
Well, before we get into the beer, let's take out the huge elephant in the room, as you said, the RTDs and the Seltzers. You guys have a craft cocktail line as well as a hard seltzer line. Are you guys going to be distroing that throughout the entire country, or is that going to be something like Missouri, Great Plains proper? Like, what's the goal for those brands?
So our RTDs, we've been making those for a couple of years now. Because we came in late to the seltzer game, we didn't just want to make a seltzer and put it out there. Our brewers are fantastic, like flavor makers. I'm so happy that Dan has the Magic Drip because I wanted to send that to everyone, but I could not find any here in Kansas City. It had gone. It's our job to create these unique flavors. Our brewmaster just, he won an award for innovation. And so we wanted to wait on the seltzers until we could figure out exactly how we wanted to do it. And so we took our, and I say our, but I really mean our brewers' abilities to create unique flavors. And so we came in a little bit late with the seltzer game, but those are starting to be distributed nationwide. We have a pretty wide distribution network. So I think we're in 47 states right now. So if you haven't seen Quirk on the shelves near you, you should within the next 6 months or so. We went from having 4 different seltzers to now I think we have 8 different flavors and a couple of mix packs that we'll be releasing throughout the year. We just got tired of, people would come to the brewery looking to drink our beer, but then they would be like, well, I'm gluten intolerant. I can't have beer. And we wanted to have something for them, but not just something for them, but something that represented us very well. So we tried to get some unique flavors to put them out there. So if you don't see them yet, hopefully you will see them soon.
So I also see that you guys have gotten into the craft cocktail phase that's going on. How did that come about?
So we have, like the craft beer boom happened before the distillery boom, right? Like I'm sure wherever you are, there's people that are making wonderful gin or vodka or have been, barrel aging whiskey for a while. The same thing happened in Kansas City where we had a lot of really rad distilleries open up in the past few years, and we wanted to find a way to work with them. And, beer and spirits, while a beer and the shot is, that's seminal, right? When you go to a bar, you have a beer and a shot sidekick. We wanted to find a way to kind of work with these distilleries locally. And again, it was just like, how do we do it in a way that's genuine, that's honest, that represents us in the way we want it to be represented? And we saw, really the market, there was kind of an open gap, at least here regionally, for these RTDs or for these canned cocktails. And so it just kind of made sense for us to partner with these local distilleries, make these really creative flavors, and then send them out and see how they do. That's maybe you want a gin and tonic while you're on a float trip, and we wanted to be able to accommodate that for you.
What's your favorite of that line?
So currently, this past summer, we did a vodka lemonade that was, it was so appropriate for the season. It was wildly drinkable. I want to say my weight in that over the month of June. It was pretty easy to drink, which is dangerous. But we have a Paloma coming out next year that I had a chance to try the early version of, and the Paloma is my favorite just straight up cocktail. I'm a big fan of grapefruit, and the Paloma, I'm looking forward to that being available full time.
I'm looking for the Mai Tai over by me.
Oh yeah, so the Mai Tai got a little bit of facelift. So when you see it, we changed the color of the can a little bit. We also realized. So I don't know if you guys were familiar with this, but last summer we did a beer called Tiki Slam. That was it was like a wheat beer with like pineapple and orange and guava. But we also this year we had to take a really hard look inside at how we were representing ourselves to the public at large. And we invited a lot of different people looking at us through different lenses. And we came to find out that while there was nothing really offensive on Tiki Slam or the Mai Tai, but there was kind of an appropriation of the Polynesian culture there. And there is a movement nationwide where as tiki bars become more and more popular, that even the term tiki can be a little bit insensitive to the Polynesian culture because it represents colonialism. So next year we dropped the word tiki. We said, it's a name. We can change that easily. So we dropped the word tiki, replace it with tropic. The Mai Tai, we took a look at the label as well, and we looked to see if there was anything that could be perceived as troublesome. We did. We invited a panel of people to kind of come and take a look at it. So the can will look a little different to you because we did remove some iconography that, while initially we thought it's just a cocktail, right? But then when we look at it through a different lens, we realized that maybe some of the stuff could be insensitive. So we changed it, and hopefully what we put out next year will be, will be pleasing to everybody. We won't be appropriating any culture that's not ours.
I have a question here too. I'm glad you were talking just vaguely about, putting out things that are offensive. This isn't offensive. Don't take it that way. But one thing that's always caught my eye are your bottles. Between your bottles and your labels are absolutely amazing. They always stand out at the store. No matter where you go when you're looking for beer, like this one just pops out. It was easy to find when I was there. But you seem to do a lot of cans lately, including putting some beers that were in bottles in cans. Is there a reasoning behind that, or what's the story? Are you moving more to cans, or what's the situation?
Yeah, so our founder. It's funny. There's in the hallway behind me is a news article from the mid '90s with our founder John McDonald, and at the end of it, John says, we're never going to make a light beer, we're never going to put beer in can, and we're never going to make a non-alcoholic beer. And we did all three of those things this past year because you have to adapt, right? You have to adapt and change. Exactly. Fine start there. We realized that you never say never. We do what the market dictates. And a few years ago, we dabbled in putting our beer in cans, and we realized that cans are the other thing too is that we're super sustainable. We know that everything that goes in the beer comes from the earth. And if we're not taking care of the earth, then there won't be any more beer. I mean, it's a simplistic way of looking at it, but it's very important to everybody here at the brewery that we are taking care of our environment that we live in. And aluminum is infinitely recyclable. You can recycle that all day long, but it's also lighter. So we can put more on a truck and it's less weight, so we're using less greenhouse gases. You can fit more cans in a fridge than you can bottles. They store better. And it's just, I think if you polled everyone in the industry today, they would agree that the can is probably a lot better vessel to have beer in as opposed to glass, which is opaque. And, we know that sunlight is the biggest enemy of beer, and cans don't allow any oxygen or light in. So there is a move to do more into can. We'll never move away from bottles completely, but we just felt it was, we just wanted to do our part and have a more sustainable option.
Awesome. Now, going back to this Magic Drip, I know you said you were hoping everyone would get this. I wanted to send one to everyone, yeah. I was fortunate enough to find it right here by my house. But for those that don't know, it's a barrel-aged, wheated imperial stout with Colombian coffee. I'm a barrel-aged nut when it comes to beer. One of my favorite beers. I rarely try to drink anything that's not barrel-aged. That's how screwed up I am these days. Tell us a little bit about your barreling program. Do you have a lot? I know you do the whiskey barrel stout. I've seen that before. Do you have a lot of beers you're doing barrel aging with, or what's the situation there?
Yeah, so we just did an inventory, and our barrel library has surpassed 5,000 barrels right now. We have a warehouse just outside of, that's got part from the brewery. It's a different facility, and in there we've got rye whiskey barrels, bourbon barrels, rum barrels. We've got a beer coming out in February that's been aged in port wine barrels. And those port wine barrels also previously held rye whiskey. So that beer is going to be really big and boozy. We have, looking at the numbers this past year, I think we have the 6th largest barrel inventory. Barrel aging beers is a big part of who we are. We made our first barrel aged beer just over 10 years ago. Our brewmaster was on a plane with a distiller from Templeton Rye. And they just started talking about, like, I love your beer, I love whiskey. And they were like, we should, it's like the Reese's cup, right? It's like your chocolate's in my peanut butter's in your chocolate. So we started with a small beer called Rye on Rye. And it was a partnership with Templeton. And those beers, like Goose Island and Firestone Walker, those are the two legends of barrel aging, right? They've been working with wood forever. And those are the ones we look at when we have questions. But over the years, we've realized that there is a time, like, in the wintertime when the weather cools, people tend to gravitate to these big, high ABV beers that have depth and complexity. And so it was like once a year we would do our beer aged in rye barrels or beer aged in bourbon barrels. And as we had more and more relationships with distilleries and barrel brokers, we realized that we could get access to some really great American oak barrels or French oak barrels. And then we just went all in. We separated our brewing program. We actually have dedicated brewers who, that's what they do, is they blend. We've got beer in barrels that are like 2 weeks old, and we've got beer in barrels that are like 5 years old. Honestly, that's probably trash now, but they can blend it into something fresh, really small batch, and create these really cool, innovative flavors. And then we realized that a barrel aged beer is like the perfect palate for things like coffee, right? We had a beer that's out now that we added like cookie and lactose to, and it tastes like a trademark sandwich cookie that we couldn't put on the label, but we tried to allude to it. And then next month we have a barrel aged beer where we're adding maple and pecan, because we figured that's the best beer to have when your relatives annoy you at Thanksgiving dinner. You just drink a 14% beer, and those conversations become a little bit easier to take. And then next year we have Rye on Rye and Whiskey Barrel Stout. Whiskey Barrel Stout, and then the BBQ, which Wendy is drinking. Those are year round. We added Rye on Rye to year round because we have access to some of these great barrels now. So it is very much a big part and a priority of what we're doing now.
Awesome. What now? My personal favorite, my normal go-to is Steep Drop. Is there ever going to be a chance of getting that barrel aged? Maybe not on nitro.
Man, I'm gonna break your heart real quick, Dan. I apologize, but Steep Drop, unfortunately, was a casualty of the pandemic.
Oh no.
Yeah, because so Steep Drop was a beer that we made, specifically to be on nitro in bars, right? We wanted for people to be able to pour nitro, and then for 18 months we didn't have those bars anymore, and so we just didn't have the volume or the pull through of the Steep Drop package to for us to keep making it. So Steep Drop is going to take a year off. next year. So it won't be available. So if you see any on the shelf, I encourage you to buy it up before it goes away. But we're, that style, that stuff is, we're always, our barrel wrangler is like, that Portlandia sketch where like put a bird in it. He's just like, put it in a barrel, whatever it is. It doesn't matter. Put it in a barrel and see what happens. And sometimes it works and sometimes
It's a good call.
Yeah.
I am really enjoying this Space Camper. This is super easy drinking and light and like almost fruity. I don't know. I'm having a whole time here.
Sure.
And I know 7% of, because there's like 3 main ones and sometimes 5. There's rotating ones of these flavors. Mm-hmm. What's the organization that's being donated to right now with these? Because 7% of all Space Camper profits go to Boulevard Tourism.
Yeah. So, we've always been, we're this close to being LEED certified. We're a zero waste facility. We have solar panels and we have a green roof. Nothing goes to waste. I was listening to your podcast with Sierra Nevada, and I could relate to her when she was talking about in every office, we have 25 trash cans. You don't just throw something away. You have to be very deliberate in where it goes. And we've always worked with organizations that are also dedicated to preserving the environment. So Space Camper, when it came out in 2019, it was just kind of a cheeky tagline when we said, save the earth. It's the only planet with beer. And then we realized that we have an outlet here. We have an opportunity to really use this message and kind of like double down on it and go in. And so we realized, the 7 is tank 7. It was like, it's a number that people associate with us. And so we did. We said 7% of our Space Camper sales this year are going to go to, and I think it's worded like carefully chosen organizations that are also dedicated to preserving our precious home, right? Bulk of that goes to Arbor Day, who we've worked with for many years. We donate to them. We plant trees with them. So about 50% of that is going to go to Arbor Day. And we have ongoing projects nationwide. And then the difference, we allow our sales team, because we have our sales team on the ground nationwide, to find places in their area that they like, maybe your largest retailer, they already have a partnership with some organization that is working to preserve the earth somehow, like Clean Trails or the Park Service, or Iowa has the Department of Natural Resources. Those are the places where we're going to allow them to localize that as much as we can, so that we can spread it out far and wide.
That's great. That's so cool.
It's a pretty important part of who we are. I mean, it's in our blood. On our website, we have, we try to be as transparent about all things. And there's no topic that is off the table here. And sustainability is one of those things that we never really have actively promoted it, because we always just felt like it was the right thing to do. So it's just kind of just been running in the background this whole time. And we thought Space Camper, as a hero herself, her alter ego is El Dorado, because that's the hop variety that we use. That's that fruit that you're getting, the grapefruit and the watermelon.
Yeah.
We feel that we realized that we had this superhero that we could use to kind of like Captain Planet, right? To advocate that, and then to get people involved. So just to engage the consumer in a way and make them aware, that beer isn't just, it just doesn't pop into existence. It grows. And so we raise awareness to like a lot of the droughts and the fires and stuff that are happening on the West Coast that are affecting hops, like it's terrible what's happening. And then by the time that you're like, why can't I get this IPA anymore? It might be too late for you to do anything. So we want to raise awareness and let people know what's going on.
Very cool.
I guess this is where I jump in next, being the unprepared loser that I am when it comes to these podcasts. Since I think Dan and our former co-host Matt called me part-timer. I don't know.
He called you part-timer before you hopped on.
Yeah, I know. Part-timer
literally.
Even hopped on.
Apparently, you were listening.
I guess I got some supersonic hearing or something. Like, oh, they must be calling me part-timer right now.
And then you pop in.
Anyway, I had to break the ice there a little bit. Anyway, so everyone else was kind of asking their question, I'm like trying to think about, okay, what can I ask? And one thing that popped up on my screen really caught my attention. And it was a collaboration that you guys did with a rapper who is local to Kansas, to Missouri.
Yeah.
His name is Tech9.
The legend.
How in the world did that collaboration come to be? Because I don't know. I enjoy rap music. but
trying to see if I have a can on the show.
Oh, you actually have a can.
I might we have our like a can library that we use for art reference and stuff.
Okay.
So I think they may still be. How that came about is, here's the thing. We love Kansas City. Everybody that works here is, I don't know if you guys have ever been to Kansas City, but it's one of the few cities where when you walk around town, you'll be like, damn, there's like 1,000 tourists here because everybody's wearing a shirt that says Kansas City or KC, right? Like, I love Kansas City. You wouldn't go to New York, you catch people live there dead. They would not have like I love New York shirt. That's for tourists. But we love this town. And like Tech9, he loves this town. His Strange Music, his label, he kind of had that same spirit of adventure that our founder, John McDonald, did. He didn't want to be, beholden to anybody. And Tech9 is an independent. He doesn't, he isn't beholden to a label. He has his own label. Everything that he does is done here in Kansas City, right in Lee Summit, right down the road. And then, we have Tech9 fans here. And every year we have a big music and beer festival called Boulevardia. And we wanted Tech9 to play. So we invited him to be the headliner one night. And just in that conversation, we were like, yeah. And what if we just made a beer for, between the two of us, like you come and help us brew for a day. And you have a song called Caribou Lou, which is pineapple rum, 151 and I'm sorry, coconut rum, 151 and pineapple juice. And we're like, we love all those things. Let's throw it in a wheat beer. Right. And so he was into it and he was here. He helped us like do a lot. He's here a lot. He has some great videos. If you go to you might have to track back to his website now, about him and his team here interacting with us. And it was a lot of fun. And we thought that it was just going to be limited to Kansas City. And our Denver sales team was like, hey, Tech's playing this show. Why don't we order, get our wholesaler to buy like a pallet. And then one retailer in Denver bought that a pallet of beer, which is a hell of a lot of beer, right? But there were people who were lined around the block to get the beer before lining around the block to go to his show. And so we realized that we were kind of onto something like niche. That was something special. And it was a lot of fun. I mean, 2 weeks before it happened, we talked about it and they're like, there's no way he's going to go for it. And he absolutely did because he loves Kansas City just as much as we do. And we felt like here, at least here in KC, there's a few icons like the Kansas City Royals, Kansas City Chiefs, Strange Music, which is Tech9, barbecue and beer. And all of those things often go very well together. So.
Do you feel with the collaboration with Tech9 might have brought in customers that wouldn't normally see craft beer? So Rob, who's not here, is about trying to bring blacks into craft beer into the industry more than ever before, and trying to make it more inclusive. Do you feel like that collaboration might have brought in customers or people that have not been exposed to craft beer
totally.
more than what you would have ever have imagined? And has Boulevard been able to sustain some of that and bring more people in and say craft beer is for everybody? It's not just for craft beer Yeezyses like us that are on this show. That's a throwback. That's a throwback. Bingo square, call it. So
yeah. Absolutely, man. For sure. So I'm here at the brewery and I'm looking downtown and I see what we call the Sprint Center, right? And the Sprint Center is just a big arena. It used to be called the Sprint Center. Now it's the T-Mobile Arena. That's the nature of things. When it first opened, Elton John played there the first night. He opened it and that was wild. And then Garth Brooks played 7 shows in a row, right? 7 nights in a row. And beer sales were no problem at a Garth Brooks show, believe it or not, right? Our core brands, Unfiltered Wheat and Pale Ale, did very well. And then, there is a market that we know is well covered. That over the years, craft beer seems like, and beer in general really has been talking to one set of people. Sure. And we've seen, I think the marketing in beer, just watching it evolve over the years has been great, right? I mean, I remember when I was a kid, beer commercials had a lot of skin because they were targeting to one set of people and they were alienating everyone else. And I think when craft beer came on, craft beer, I mean, look at the people that founded, like Ken Grossman, right? You have Brooklyn Brewing Company, the Odell Brewing Company, and then Boulevard. You had these people who grew up in a time like they grew up in the 60s and the 70s where it's like, we need to be more inclusive and we need to spread peace and love. Hippies is who I'm talking about. And then they came out and they were like, I love weed as much as I love beer, but I can make beer. I can't grow. And so they're like, there was this spirit of inclusivity. And I think that we try to carry that over as much as we can today. I don't think that, I don't know. I read this article on Good Beer Hunting where they were talking about for a very long time, the Black community, there was, the big beer had a targeted beer for the Black community. And I think that it left craft beer wide open to say like, any beer can be for anybody. It doesn't matter. Right. But I think that the Tech9 beer did maybe put us in some spaces, put us into some venues where we typically wouldn't be because they're like, there's a rap venue. We normally don't carry your flagship beers, the light beers, the beers that are typically targeted to like sports fans. So I think it did. Yeah, I think it did help us reach out to the community at large. And we're always working to do that. This past year, I don't think it probably made to Michigan, but so Kansas City is home to the Negro Leagues Baseball Museum. And they celebrated their 100th anniversary, the leagues. It was the 100th anniversary of the Negro Leagues Baseball. And the museum wanted to have a big celebration in 2020, but they couldn't because of everything.
COVID. Run of the mill stuff like that.
Sure. So we wanted to do something with them. And this year things loosened up a little bit. So they were like, we're actually going to celebrate this year. And we went to them and like, how can we help? How can we help you promote this? How can we get your name outside of Kansas City? Because this is important to our part of our history. And they were like, what if you made a beer for us? And we're like, done. So Bob Kendrick, who's the president of the museum, he started a campaign a couple years ago called Tip Your Cap, where he asked baseball players to literally like on camera, on TikTok, on Instagram, to tip their cap to the players that came before them. And it took off. We have like 5 living presidents that were involved. There was an astronaut who tipped his cap from space. So we're like, well, let's take that. Tip Your Cap is such a great program. So we made a beer called Tip Your Cap, and we donated most of the proceeds of that beer back to the museum. But we were able to distribute that beer outside of Kansas City, hoping to gain hoping that the museum could get some recognition that maybe, people were unaware that it happened. So those are kinds of things we look for, opportunities like that. The Tech9 beer, honestly, was just because, man, we like Tech9. We just wanted to have him here and hopefully he'll write a rap about us. Which I think he did at the show, and it was great. But it would be naive to say that we don't use these as opportunities to talk to people who we don't normally have an opportunity to talk to.
All right, Wendy.
Well, speaking of inclusiveness, as someone who is using this platform as much as she can to promote women in the industry, I would be remiss if I did not bring up the situation that broke earlier this year with a Reddit post. I'm not going to go over all the details because if you don't know about it already, to our listeners, you can always Google search it. But Danny and I have both made our stance known that admitting to wrongdoing and putting a plan in place to keep it from happening again is what we're looking for when we see news like this break. So my question to you is, that is something that Boulevard did. And I believe we've actually talked about it on the show before. But what I'm wondering is what positive changes has Boulevard made since that story broke? Sure.
I'm happy to go over the timeline as someone who was, we lived it, right? We were here when it happened. And I know that she's a friend of mine. The person who posted on Reddit. I think, when that happened, our first response was like, not Boulevard. We don't do that, and I think that was our initial reaction. And, and so then our leadership at the time released a statement that basically said that, right? They're like, we understand this person was, her feelings were hurt, but that's not who we are. That doesn't happen here. And then I think it was just a matter of hours where my friends and family here came forward and said like, no, this is an issue. These are things that are happening. And then there was just a collective heartbreak here at the brewery, here in Kansas City, where we realized that there were people who were hurting and didn't think that they had a voice or an outlet or an opportunity, or maybe they have spoke up, but it wasn't heard. And that was gut-wrenching. It was absolutely gut-wrenching. And so then the second statement came out. The second statement that we had, like, if we had just like got the temperature of the room before releasing such a tone deaf statement that you know, it was that we're in defense mode. Like, well, not us, of course not us. And then we realized, like, oh no, there's some stuff happening that we need to discuss. There were multiple failures at multiple levels that came to light in less than 24 hours. And that second statement went out it was a better representation of what the brewery was doing in the moment, in that we recognize what happened, we recognize what's happening, and when we need to do something. And honestly, the change didn't happen quick enough for us. And I don't know if you're aware of this, but there was a manifesto that was sent out by the employees, a good number of employees here, that basically said that the messaging that's being sent out isn't representative of what's actually happening here at the brewery. And that was kind of an eye opener for a lot of people. You know, my friends and my neighbors that don't work at Boulevard were calling me and texting me and like, what the hell is happening? Why I didn't, you know, we love you guys. We had no idea this was happening. And, you know, your first response is to be like, I had no idea either. And I personally didn't, but I did, you know, like shut my mouth for a week. And a lot of people here shut their mouth for a week, and we listened. And when we heard stories, we hired a third party like agency to come in, and they interviewed every single person here. Actually, first thing that happened was our founder, John McDonald, who is in his 70s now, he is well retired and enjoying the fruit of his labor. He came back and kind of took the reins, and he brought us all together. And he was, you know, he said, you know, he basically was shocked, first of all, because he's not around. And there were some significant changes that were made immediately, which you guys have talked about, you've discovered. After those significant changes were made, we're like, that's not enough. So we hired this third-party agency, and the HR firm, they came in and they interviewed every single person here. We each got like 30 minutes to an hour with them to just talk to them. Even I did. And I didn't experience what my friends and family, some of the women here, have experienced. And we talked to them, and they talked to everybody. And then they went back and they filed the report, their findings. And as a result of those findings, some other changes were made that were really hard to hear and hard to see. And then after that, we realized that that's not enough either, that we have to be transparent. We have to let the fans know. I mean, so when I was listening to the podcast and you guys were talking about Boulevard, someone was like, this won't affect sales, so they're not concerned about it. And well, maybe it wouldn't affect the sales number in Arizona because people in Arizona, they're not. That would have been me. The daily. Oh, yes, Dan. Yeah.
I was going to say he didn't even need to mention Arizona. I knew for a fact he was.
You're probably right.
Just so you guys are aware, that episode is called Boulevards and Beer Boxes. It's a news episode from February 2021. So if you want to pause, go back and listen to that episode and come back, feel free to do so. Again, it's on our podcast. So if you're subscribing to us on iTunes, Spotify, Pocket Cast, anything like that, obviously you can go and grab that episode and come back. Sorry, Adam, continue.
Oh, no, that's good. I should have said spoilers. But we have a lot of partners, right? We have partners that we were going to have collaborations with beers last year, and we had to call them and be like, hey, we're going through some stuff right now. Do you still want to make a beer with us and put your name out there? Do you want to be associated? And, you know, breweries are cool. It's a super socialist like environment. All the brewers know each other, but they were like, you know, we'll give you some time. We'll give you some time to sort it out. Let's see what you do. And then we can have those conversations again. Our largest like financial partner is the Kansas City Royals. And the Royals reached out and they were like, hey, listen, we know we got some stuff that's about to happen because it's February. The season starts end of March, early April. They were like, can we wait before sending any point of sale out to the market? Can we just kind of see what's going to happen? Because that's a big brand that has a lot to protect too, right? They were like, we're going to put this on hold. And honestly, we were like, fine, great. We have people here that are hurting. Let's take care of them first, and then we'll talk to you later. And it actually took some weight off of us. You know, I would say it helped us, but it does. I just want to belie the impact that it had. And so we realized we needed to be transparent. And everything is like on our website. We have boulevard.com. I think commitment to change, and it catalogs every step of the way from the very first Reddit post to our most recent like we did an event with Pride. We're trying to be more exclusive here. We're trying to increase the diversity of, because we had to take a look and be like, what's the breakout or percentage of people that work here that are men to women? And then also let's look at the diversity, like, who are we employing? And then how can we create a space that's more inviting for other people of color, for, if we want to increase diversity. But if we're known as like the sexist, racist brewery, no one wants to come work for us. So we can't invite them into a space that seems hostile, right? So there were a lot of changes that were made. We hired a new HR director who comes with a lot of experience, and she has been wonderful. She has like an open door policy. There's everything is, like everything that should have been done is being done, but now being done better. And we also created a diversity committee to ask these questions, like who can we invite in to look at us, and then let's listen to them through their lens rather than just the beardy white dude, of which there are a bunch here. It's time for us to like sit down and listen and stop talking or giving our opinion on these matters. We invited the Pink Boot Society to come in and do a presentation. And then we're also like, we need to increase the Pink Boot Society in Kansas City, their membership. There needs to be more, because it's substantial, but we wanted to make it bigger. We need more representation there. So we pay for all of our, any of our, anybody at the brewery that can be a member of the Pink Boot Society, we pay their membership. And we, as a result of that, we doubled the membership here in Kansas City. And then we invite them here often to kind of, like interact with us and talk to us and work with our people. And then they come back and report to us. We most recently joined the Latin American, the Mexican Chamber of Commerce, and not so much to be a part of that organization, but to open ourselves up to them so that they can come in and kind of critique us and keep us in check and let us know what we're doing, if we're doing anything out of line, and to help open it up to that community as well. And we work with a lot of Pride. Our leadership are going through lots of, they're like on a weekly basis, they're going through training that I think that probably should have been happening, but everybody was like, oh, this doesn't happen here, so why do we need that? And that's kind of like one of those opportunities where you should have said, well, maybe that's why we need to have it. So we're always looking for new opportunities to look inward, and then also find people that can hold a mirror up to us, that can show us what we're doing from their point of view. And we hope that eventually we can get to a place. So on that podcast, you guys mentioned something, and I told Wendy this earlier before the show. I shared that episode with our HR department and with our communications director. I was like, I think it's really important to hear what people are saying outside of Kansas City, because we hear Kansas City is the most vocal for us because that's where we're located. So it was nice to, nice is not the right word, but it was valuable to hear that perspective. And I think that that's something that I hope that they, any one of our town halls, that maybe they will take that and kind of write out the script and like, here's some points that they made that we ought to consider. And someone, and I don't recall who it was, but one of you said that like forgiveness comes at different speeds for everybody, right? And we know that there are people out there that still haven't forgiven us, and that's okay. We want to get to a place where they can find a way to forgive us, and maybe one day they will drink our beer again, and maybe one day they will come here and we can drink a beer together. That's the most important thing, is that I want us to drink beer together. We started a consumer we reached out to the beer community in Kansas City, and we created what I call the Bully Social Club. But it's really just a group of a small, tight-knit group of people who are very vocal in the beer community, that aren't don't work at breweries, but like drink beer, have beer blogs, have beer podcasts. And we invited them here, and we meet with them every couple months to kind of like, hey, keep us in check. How are we doing? What can we do better from their perspective, and not just an eternal? And that group, we were very deliberate in the diversity of that. It's 50% men, 50% women. I don't remember the percent. I think it's like 35-40% people of color. We're inviting people from all, like no one is excluded from that group. We want as many different like perspectives as we can get, just to help keep us in check and to hold us accountable. You asked me what time it was. I told you how to build a watch. Hopefully, how are we doing for time?
No, we're doing fine, and I appreciate you breaking down everything. We didn't want to interrupt you because I think what you said is extremely valuable. And as in our episode 233, when we had Marcus on from Weathered Souls, the big discussion is that everyone is deserving of forgiveness, but as you kind of mentioned, not everyone forgives at the same speed. Not everyone will forgive you right away, and we see it, and within the craft beer industry, and I think it's a lot of it is just the more industry of fandom is that a lot of people who are local and fans of a local sports team, business, etc., can look past a lot of faults quicker, whereas people who might have an outside perspective like us here in Michigan will be a little bit more harsher on our opinion of it. And so I appreciate you taking what we had to say and obviously sharing it. That is a lot. We're going to be finishing up here soon. There is one question I want to ask before we get into our final questions. And that is that if you guys were to look up the top 50 brewing production organizations in the United States, Duvel is going to be in there in the top 5. Obviously, Duvel is your parent company. Talk to us real quick. How does that work? They kind of have their own U.S. subsidiary. Who's with you under the Duvel branch? And kind of explain that a little bit to us for the people who are confused when they, see you guys as still considered independent or craft beer, even though, you have a potentially a foreign parent company.
Sure. Yeah. So I think it was at Savor in DC back in 2012. When our founder, John McDonald, was at Savor with Ken Grossman and Steve Dressler, and then a handful of people here. And someone asked John, because John is of retirement age, like, what's your succession plan? And John was like, it was like a oh shit moment. He was like, oh, damn, I need to start thinking about that. And then shortly after that, Boulevard started getting courted by the big three, the big macros, right? So Bud, Miller, Coors, all those, they all came and had meetings with John, and that's when they were gobbling up craft breweries everywhere. And John realized that he needed, Boulevard needed to grow. We were at a point where we were at capacity. We could not make another drop of beer, but the demand was high. So he met Simon Thorpe, who was the Duvel USA president at the time, at some beer related thing in Colorado, and just, got on with them. And Simon was like, well, you should meet with Michel Morgat, who owns Duvel Morgat, the Morgat family, right? They've been making Duvel for 150 years. So John met with Michel, and it took a long time. I think Michel, so Duvel, they were one of the early investors in Omegang, Brewery Omegang in Cooperstown, New York. And then they were like, Duvel, what they do in Europe is pretty cool, because Europe also has, they've gone through, wars, right? That has done a number in breweries that have been around for 1,500 years. Leafman's, for example, that brewery has been in operation for about 1,200 years. And they were going through hard times. They just couldn't keep up. So Duvel bought them and gave them the ability to continue making beer. So they're finding, like Muretsu, that's a Trappist brewery. They found them and invested in them because they believed in the beer. But they were looking for kind of a snappy, scrappy brewery in the United States that was, innovative, that was allowed to innovate. Because Duvel's been making, Duvel is a great beer, and they've been making that beer for 150 years. Nothing has changed. But they are also we like beer that has variety, but we can't mess with Duvel. So let's find a partner in America that can get creative. So they courted John, and John was courting Duvel, and it took a while. But eventually John met Michel in New York City to kind of sign the paperwork. They were, come to an agreement. John felt comfortable handing the brewery over to this family-owned 150-year-old well-respected brewery. And it was kind of funny. So they're sitting on a park bench in Central Park, and John was like, look, everything looks good. The only thing that I ask personally is that since day one, John says we have family lunch every Wednesday that we take care of. We bring the brewery together every Wednesday for lunch. He's like, I don't want that to change. And Michel was like, that's it? That's your one special request, is you just want to make sure? And John was like, yeah, this is my family. I just want to make sure that we have this sense of community. So Michel was like, done. And they they had a handshake agreement right there on that park bench. And even Michelle was like, we need to take that back to Belgium and do that. And even Omegang at the time they weren't doing that. And they do that now. If you're wondering, this week it was a sandwich bar and it was delicious. We have some really great bakers who brought some desserts for us on Wednesday. It was delicious. And so, yeah, that gave us an opportunity. John was able to kind of like take a step back. Nothing really changed here except that we went from being able to produce, I think at the time we were capped at a certain barrelage, and then we were able to install a fermentation cellar. We were able to install the canning line. We were able to expand our visitors experience. We went from having something like 90 employees to almost overnight, we had like 130 employees. And now here locally, I think it's pushing like 200. So we've increased the number. We made more jobs available here. And we went from distributing to 25 states to now we're in 47. So that partnership really allowed Boulevard the room and flexibility to grow without too much changing. But now we have that, that Duvel name that we can like that equity that we can leverage against. Like, so when our salespeople are in New York, when they take, like Magic Drip to a bar there, and they're like, well, I've not heard of Boulevard. They're like, well, have you ever heard of Duvel? Duvel that's been around for 150 years. It's rated 100 on Beer Advocate. So it gives a little bit of leverage outside of Kansas City where Boulevard's not really known. And it increased our sales team. So Duvel also is, majority owner of Firestone Walker. That happened in 2000. I'm going to get this year wrong, but I think it's like 2016 was when Firestone Walker kind of came under the Duvel umbrella. So we have sister breweries on the East Coast. That's this really esoteric Belgian farmhouse brewery in Cooperstown, New York. And then on the West Coast, we have arguably one of the best American craft breweries, I would say, in the world. Firestone Walker cranks out, their beer is terrific. And they've, we are quite happy to be sharing techniques and styles and production availability with all three breweries. So it's been great. Frankly, it has, it caused some change in 2014 when it happened, but most of that change has been for the better.
Awesome. So we're going to be finishing up the episode here real quick as we end each episode with a guest. We all ask a final question. So we're going to go around in a circle, starting with Dan. Dan, what is your final question for Mr. Adam?
All right. Going back to the Tech9 question, who's the next celebrity from Kansas City that you want to make a beer with?
Oh God! So let's take trademarks and shit off the table. Oh, can I cuss? I'm sorry. Is that
yes?
Grab the S bomb. Okay, I don't know. So Kansas City is home to some great celebrities. In my dream world, like Jason Sudeikis or Paul Rudd, if I could get those guys in the brew house and make a beer, that would just, I would die a happy man.
What about Patrick Mahomes?
He's a Coors Light man, my friend. So.
I'm interested in the Paul Rudd beer. I'm really curious how that would turn out. That would probably be a lot of fun.
You got my attention with that one too.
I'll take Paul Rudd. I'm down with that.
So Paul Rudd is great. Like I don't know him. I would like to if he's listening. I've heard he's a fan.
Me too.
He was on the Hop Ones, the YouTube show, the wings where they eat hot wings. Have you guys seen that?
Yeah.
I think it was last year he was on, and they were talking about Kansas City, and they were eating some really hot wings. And he was talking about his favorite barbecue in Kansas City, which is Joe's KC, which is correct. And he was like, there's nothing better than that and washing it down with an ice cold Tank 7. And nice. I was like, yes, that's amazing. So, yeah.
That's awesome.
So we know he's a fan.
Danny, your final question for Adam here.
Have you ever done the My Perfect Match beer on your website?
No, tell me about it. What is it? I want to know.
Oh, it's so super cute. You take a little quiz, sort of, and it matches you with your best beer that like fits you. Mine is a dry hopped Hells, which sounds great.
Okay.
What would yours be?
So mine would be what you're drinking. So Space Camper. And Space Camper, I know we don't have a lot of time, but so Space Camper, there's a massive comic book convention here in Kansas City, and we poured beer at that convention for the first time ever. And we ran out of beer in the first 6 hours of the first day. And I actually had to drive to the brewery, throw some kegs in the back of the car. I hope our distributor's not listening because it's super legal. We drove it back and then tapped the beer. And then so the Monday after the Comic-Con, I'm a massive nerd, by the way. My whole arm is covered with like comic book stuff. So I went to our sales team and the marketing department. I was like, we need a beer for nerds. I was like, we got to make a beer. And so as it turns out, our brewers were working on this El Dorado IPA, and one of our designers had worked up this classic like Silver Age comic book cover. And we just put those two together, and then Space Camper was born. So I like humbly would like to say that Space Camper would not exist if it wasn't for me. But there's a lot of like passion that I have for that beer specifically, how it's branded and how it's presented to the market. And I drink a hell of a lot of it. So if I would hope that if I took that quiz, it would pair me with Space Camper.
Nicholas.
What beer are you drinking that's not currently a Boulevard beer?
Oh, you know what? That is a great question. We have a lot of fantastic breweries here. So I think the most recent beer that I've drank that wasn't Boulevard was from a brewery called Torn Label. Their Alpha Pale Ale. I think it's lovely. It's a really good representation of that style. Deschutes Fresh Squeeze. I think I had that recently as well. I think that's a great West Coast juicy IPA without being super excessively bitter. I had the Hop State from Omegang just yesterday, and that's a beer that's made with only hops from the New York State. So those are the most recent beers that I've had that weren't Boulevard. I will tell you that. So you guys live near Perrin. Perrin, I had a double IPA from them a few years back, and that beer is still in my top 5 favorite beers of all time.
Wow.
All right.
Wendy.
So my perfect match, by the way, is the Imperial QV, which I can't find anywhere. I just want to point that out. My question has to do with the Tank 7, because it is one of my favorite Boulevard beers. And I heard in my research that everyone has a Tank 7 story.
Sure.
So I'm wondering either what your Tank 7 story is, or if that's too personal to say on a podcast, what's your favorite one that you've heard?
So it is. It's everybody here in Kansas City has a Tank 7 story, and it always it's never like, one time I drank so much Tank 7 that I read a bunch of books to kids, right? It's always like I drank so much Tank 7, and then I took a ride in a Uber with red and blue lights on the top to a bed and breakfast that wasn't. It never ends. So at the brewery we have a hospitality suite that when you rent it like for weddings and stuff, it comes with there's a big, beautiful bar, and it comes with all you can drink Boulevard. That's so enticing, right? We realized a few years back though, that we can't put Tank 7 on, we had to take it off. So like when you rent that space, they're up front, they'll be like, you get as much Boulevard as you want, except for Tank 7, because we realized pretty quickly that if you have all you can drink Tank 7, wedding receptions turn into wedding annulments real fast. We had, I remember a few years back, it's probably been 6 or 7 years ago, I came into work early one morning on Sunday, and the parking lot was full of cars. And I'm like, well, this is weird. Usually there's no cars here. And it was all left over from an event that happened in the event space. And so a buddy of mine, we were walking the brewery, and we went up there, and it was a disaster. There was broken glass and shit, it was awful. And we realized that they had somehow snuck to another bar and were bringing pitchers of Tank 7 to the wedding party. And it got so bad so quickly that we were given tours that day, and someone from the wedding party had to come in with their hat pulled down over their eyes. And they came in and went to the kitchen and grabbed a wedding cake, a whole ass wedding cake that hadn't been touched. It got crazy so quick. They never even got to the part where they were cutting the cake and sharing it with each other. So I found that hilarious, because that's like an entire group of people. They all have that Tank 7 story that they're telling right now. I honestly hope that couple is still together, because that is the best, right? That their wedding reception was so lit that they never even got to the cake cutting portion. But yeah, my own personal Tank 7 story, that's for Better on Draft After Dark.
Okay. That just means we'll have to bring you on again another time. So my final question is actually 5 questions. And if each one you get right, we'll throw $10 towards the 7% charity that you guys do. So there's money on the line, and I am going to read you some reviews of Boulevard beer.
Whoa, I love this.
And you need to guess the style or the name of the beer. So all beers are Boulevard beers.
Okay.
I'll put a date on there. I'll give you as much information as I can to help you.
Okay.
So this was at the Boulevard Brewing Beer Hall. It was drank yesterday. And it says, it's probably good if you like pale ales, LOL, 1.5 stars.
I'm going to have to guess Boulevard Pale Ale.
That is correct.
Yeah.
Was I in Kansas City yesterday? What the hell?
That's amazing. That's like one of our best beers. That person, you know what? Everybody's opinion is different. Okay, next one. I'm loving this. This is amazing.
All right. So this one's going to come with a lot of hints. Just because it's more the rating is 2.75. The comment, yum. It is a 12.5% Russian Imperial Stout. And this was drank 4 hours ago at a place called 72 Table and Tap.
Oh my God. Well, honestly, it could be anything. A Russian Imperial Stout. We haven't done that in a while, so it must be an old one. 12, was it Cabernet cask?
It says inspired by John's desire to do something different.
Oh my goodness. I mean, that's like everything we make. I don't know. We have so many big boozy stouts over the years. I'll
give you one more hint. What's 20 plus 10?
Oh, so it's our 30th anniversary.
There you go.
Yeah. That is a rock solid beer, by the way. Yeah. That was a blend of a lot of different.
How do you say yum
beers.
to a 2.75
That
beer?
is because that was the range. His scale, that person's scale is 1 to 2.75, apparently. It's a weird, it's hard to break that one out. Yeah.
All right. Number 3. This was drank February 19th, 2021, out of a bottle. This is definitely not a winter warmer like others in the category. It's a very hoppy amber beer.
Nutcracker.
That's correct. No flavors get past the hops and it finishes dry and bitter. Not impressed. This is the very first time Boulevard has not been at the top of my list. Two and a quarter.
I would like to say that beer, Nutcracker, was actually John McDonald's second beer. That beer has been made since 1989. So that person has not been drinking beer very long.
All right. We're going to get a little bit harder here. Nothing more than Fancy Miller Lite, 1.5 stars. Drank July 19th or July 30th, 2019. 4.8%.
2019. Is it Hustle Up?
It is not.
Oh, not Casey Pills.
It is not. It's close. Ooh. You got 4 out of the 6 letters right.
Is it not the Beer Stout Lagerhouse Pilsner, is it? Because that person is insane.
It's Mo Pills.
Oh, Mo Pills. So Mo Pills is Casey Pills, but they sell it in St. Louis as Mo Pills because St. Louis gives Casey a big middle finger. So we call it Mo Pills over there.
All right, I guess we can give it to you.
No.
Yeah.
All right. All right, last one, and then we're going to be heading out. This is from 2 hours ago.
Oh boy.
I believe this is a quarter star. It might be a half star, but I'm pretty sure it's a quarter star. This is a 13.3% Imperial Double Stout. It is a limited release. The comment, soy sauce.
How old was this beer that they were drinking?
It looks like 608 were drank monthly out of 610 total, so it looks brand new.
Oh, Stuff of Legend?
That it is.
Yeah.
Oh.
Soy sauce. That is your beer review.
Can we get the Stuff of Legend in Michigan?
You should. If you found Magic Drip. He found it.
We have Stuff of Legend here. I have it downstairs.
Yeah, it is a beer that we distribute. Most of our barrel aged beers, because of they've got like a 2-year shelf life. We send those out far and wide. So I hope that you get it. It's pretty lovely. It's big. It's boozy.
I'm sure somebody on the show could technically ship it to us, Dan.
Yeah, I definitely can if you want it.
That's going to do it. Better on Draft. Boulevard Brewing. Thank you so much for joining us at Boulevard_beer on Instagram. Go check them out. They're in 41 states. Is that what you said?
So Take 7 is technically in 47 states.
47 states.
Yeah.
What are the states you're missing?
Louisiana, Mississippi, and then I think it's Vermont. Yeah, it's a New England state. Yeah.
That's going to do it for the Better on Draft podcast. Stay tuned for the news segment. Once again, Adam, thank you so much. And no matter what you think of your beer, we think it's Better on Draft. Have a good night.
Peace.